Hey there, future wealth builders. Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck, wondering how others seem to effortlessly grow their wealth? Well, today we're diving into the secret sauce, financial literacy. It's not just about numbers, it's about mastering how money really works and strategies that can transform your financial future. So stick around because I'm about to share the secret sauce and actionable steps that will help you grow your financial wealth. Ready to grow your wealth potential? Let's dive in. What is money? Isn't that a good place to start? We use it every day and we just expect it to work. But have you really ever thought about the question, what is money? Or maybe a different question is, how does money really work? Money itself, $100 note, is it more valuable than a $1 coin? Is it 100 times more valuable? Is there anything backing money? Money is actually fiat money. We agree that it's worth something $100. We agree that $100 note is worth 100 times more than a dollar coin, but it's only perceived value. It's agreed value. It doesn't actually have anything backing it. Money is a medium of exchange. We put trust in money. It's a value of it's how we can store wealth. So money is a store of wealth, and this is very important for us to understand how to use money and how to use it wisely. So when I was 20 years old, I broke my neck. Tragic accident. I ended up to be a quadriplegic. So I spent, and I'll go into that details at another time in another video, but I spent 6 months in hospital and doing a lot of rehab, learning how to feed myself and doing a whole bunch of things. And then I came home and spent another 6 to 12 months doing rehab at home, because you learn all these things in hospital and then you have to relearn them at home. But I realized I have this gift. 20 years old, I'd finished school. I was studying. I was at Bible college. A lot of my friends were starting their careers. They were getting married. They were going to university. There was a lot of things on. Young adults doing a lot of things. Doing serving in church, and my social engagements were quite busy. My life was quite busy. But I realized that I had a gift. As I said, everyone was busy doing stuff. But I was forced to stop and think about life. I was forced to consider things and think about things. And I didn't ask God why, but I asked God what's next. And I felt that this was a really important question to ask God, because often when you ask why this, why that, why this, why that, often you go spiraling downwards. And if God actually answered you, you might not like the answer sometimes. But instead of changing the question from why to what's next, it's focusing on what's happened, what's going to happen, what do you want me to achieve. And I had this gift because, as I was saying, my life, as a young adult, most people are quite busy. They're starting out life, they're hitting the ground running, they want to achieve things, they have goals and all these aspirations and visions. But as a 20-year-old, I was forced to stop, and I couldn't do a whole lot. I couldn't go out, I couldn't leave the hospital. Even when I got home, I had to have support workers help me get out of bed and get dressed and do activities and all those sorts of things as I grew my skill level and my strength and all those sorts of things. So it took quite a lot of time. But I had this time to reflect and think, what's important in life? What do I want to achieve in life? I can reflect on all those 20 years I had growing up and the things that I've done and achieved. But really, what did I want to achieve? What was my goals and aspirations? And I had a lot of time to think and ponder. Considering some of the hard times I had, but considering some of the good times I had, and thinking about what I actually wanted for my life. And I often, as growing up, I thought I hadn't been through a GFC, I hadn't been through a depression, I hadn't been a quite sheltered upbringing, but I had a whole number of different jobs. I had worked in a mechanic shop, I worked doing Christmas decorations. I had a job at McDonald's. I had all these weird and wonderful jobs. I worked in a sign company with my brother, which were great experiences. But I always thought I would, if all else failed, I could always just get a labour job. I could go out labouring. I could go lift something. I could carry something. I could move something, and I could get a job because I was physically strong and fit. Before my accident, I was, quite an able young man. Played lots of sport and all those sorts of things. But then I began to realise that my life looks a bit different now. I can't lift things. I can't move things. I can't pull things. My legs don't work at all. My arms have restricted use. I use a wheelchair now. It's just different. So I had to think, what can I do with my brain? How do I use my brain to make me money? So what I did is I got to know some of the most wealthiest people I knew at the time, and I was a businessman, and I went to coffee with them, and I went to lunch with them, and I would pay and hang out with them and get to know them and try to understand how they thought about money, how they thought about life, tried to glean off them. And I started to realise that the way to use your brain to make money is to use money to make money. And you can do a lot of things by using your brain to make money. You don't have to have money to make money. With using your brain, you can create wealth. And I started reading all these books. Started reading books like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'll put all these links in the description below, because I think they're really important books, and I think it's great. You need to understand financial literacy to understand how money works, because if you don't know how money works, you just use it, right? And you don't know its full potential. So increasing your financial literacy, understanding how money works, how understanding the ins and outs and how people use money in various different ways, then you can think, well, how do I want to use money? How, instead of using my sweat equity, my physical labour, I'm hammering the nail, I'm driving the truck, I'm cutting the hair. How do I move from using my sweat equity, being the implementer, and how do I use my communication and my imagination to create wealth, which is really high level. So I read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read pretty much his whole series, which was great. I read books like Steve McKnight, 0 to 250 Properties. I read books like Barefoot Investor. I read books like Myron Golden's Boss Moves books and Cashman to Trashman, some great books. And they were all about financial literacy and growing your financial understanding of how money works, and which was really important. And as I said, I'll put all the links in the description below, because I want you to go out and start learning. I don't care if you buy these books. These are some great books. There's plenty of books out there. But you need to go out and educate yourself so you can grow your financial literacy. It's so important. You don't learn this at school. You don't learn this off your mum or your dad or your uncle or your auntie or your cousin or your best friend, because they don't know it. And you need to understand financial literacy. It's literally the key to unlocking wealth in your life. So what I did, I didn't even have a job. I was, as I mentioned, I was in hospital, 6 months come out, I was in rehab, I was learning I had to learn I had to get my license again. I learned how to drive again. I learned how to dress myself, feed myself, all these skills that I had to relearn. So after doing that, I eventually got a job. But before I got a job, I was able to start educating myself. And I spent 5 years understanding, reading books, gleaning off these businessmen before I bought my first investment property. And I could do that because buying a book was $20, $30. Taking these guys out for coffee was $20, $30. I can spend time taking them to lunch. I could, $50, I'd buy a lunch and spend time with them and glean off them. And I think these are some really key things. Today there's courses, there's YouTube, there's podcasts. There's all these different ways to learn how to educate yourself, and they're so important. My suggestion for you is don't invest in anything you don't understand. So if you don't understand it, you need to understand it first. So don't just go, oh, my neighbor said crypto is great. Now I'm not endorsing crypto, but some people make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions of dollars doing crypto. Now I don't invest in crypto. I don't understand it. So until I understand a investment vehicle, I won't use it. Likewise, if I don't know how to drive a semi-trailer truck, I'm not going to drive it. I don't have a license. So I know how to drive my normal car. My brother, he drives massive cranes. He has all his tickets so that he can drive cranes. So he's licensed and understands how to use that vehicle, so he can drive it. I don't drive it. I don't fly in an airplane because I don't know how to use that vehicle. I haven't been taught, haven't been trained. So often we talk about investment vehicles. So you need to learn how to use that vehicle before you go and use it. Me personally, me and my wife, we invest in real estate. We understand. I've been investing in real estate for over 10 years, probably close to 15 years now. We have over 5 different rental properties, which is great, and it helps us build wealth over time. So you need to invest in your own self so that you can develop your own financial literacy. It's so important. I can't stress how important it is. So what I did, I spent 5 years learning, gleaning, understanding, deciding what investment vehicle did I want to do before I started purchasing my first investment property. And what I did, I got a job. I got another job. I started saving, and I saved up enough for a deposit so that I could buy my first investment property. And then I got married, and then we bought another one, and then we bought another one, then we sold one, then we bought another one. So, and it takes time to build up. But my encouragement to you is you need to understand financial literacy and don't invest in anything until you understand it. On the flip side of that, you need to take a leap. So you can't understand everything. You must, at some point, you've got to step into it. I remember signing, my first mortgage for my first property. I ended signing on the dotted line, and it was very scary. I was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I, all these questions. Am I taking out this big debt? How am I going to pay off this thing? If I don't get tenants and all these sorts of things, all these questions. But at some point you need to leap and jump and step out in faith and believe that you've learned enough. You need to take on wisdom, talk to people, ask people that have done it before, ask them how they've done it, and get a financial coach if you need to, talk to your accountant, all these things to add so that you're making wise choices. But my first encouragement is you need to learn financial literacy, learn the investment vehicle that you want, and then once you learn it, you need to jump, you need to leap, you need to jump into it so that you can see what God can do in and through your life. Hope this video blesses you, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.